Hi folks, so I hope everyone's doing well. I've been wanting to do this video for a long time, like a very long time, and I've been slowly collecting knives with lock slip issues. So what is lock slip? Lock slip is, when you put pressure on the spine of the knife, the lock bar goes the other way instead. Alright, so for a frame lock and liner lock, the way it's supposed to work is that as you apply force to this direction, it actually should compress the lock bar and encourages the lock bar to travel this way. Therefore, you have a later lockup. So for knives that actually are made right, all right, the locks are actually made right. If you spine whack it, whatever, or white knuckle it, all's gonna happen is this lock bar goes this direction. All right, that's the direction it's supposed to go. Because the spring tension is applying to this direction. If it goes the other way, this geometry is not right. It may be off a little bit. It may be because of the materials. I don't exactly have a scientific answer for it. Only real hypothesis I kind of have is that, well, with some, all right, when the tang angle is cut too steep, then that is actually the source of the slip. If you actually, there was an Alan Elishowitz video that he posted on his Facebook that explained it very well about the lock geometry. It's also in the Bob Terzola's book as well that explains the geometry of the tang. You want to keep it between 7 and 8 degrees. What I found is that I personally, when I had to recut locks, I had to go below 7 to get a more consistent and solid lockup that can, do spine wax and such. And I know that people are gonna be like, oh, you don't do spine wax to knives and stuff, which is, I understand, because you're not supposed to use a knife like that. But at the same time, a locking knife should lock. It shouldn't go the other way. So, just to show you, here's a little block of wood, all right? And, all right, so it's good, and it fails. Good, fails, fails, all right? And I'm not hitting hard either. All right, this is ZT. Yeah, I'm not trying to pick on ZT, but this one's good and it fails. Fails. I'm not trying to pick on ZT here. It just so happened the few I have are ZTs. All right, so to get into how to fix these real quick, it's surprisingly simple, which I feel like in the case of ZTs, it has more to do with that it's metal on metal. So it's actually not as secure as it could be. So this is just a small strip of sandpaper. It's 1200 grit. You can use 1000 grit. I haven't used lower than 1000 grit. And all you do is you slide it in onto your lock face. All right, and you just use the lock bar tension on it. You don't, add any tension or anything. Sometimes you might need to actually help, push the other way so it's actually not stuck, and just give it a few passes. All right, so right there, it got a little stuck, which tells me that, yeah, this is probably gonna work really. So it's right now it's stuck, so I'm gonna give it a little less pressure, so I can just let it slide. And you want to do this to knives with inserts facing the insert, because, well, if you do have to send this in for warranty work or of the sort, then they can just replace the insert, not the blade, which, kind of the point of the whole lock bar insert. And you just do this a couple of times and just kind of give it a little check. See if this actually made it better. See, that's all it took. So, which again, my hypothesis is that the surfaces just need to be made a little bit better, and the sandpaper just knocks off just enough that corner so it rounds it ever so slightly, so then it helps meets this locking surface a lot more. So see, it's solid. All right, now to try it on this one, which, because I feel like, because I've tried this on several knives, the ones that are cut way too steep will not work because they're just way too steep. The ones that are cut very close, like the 7 to 8 degrees that Bob Terzola and Alan Elishowitz talked about, it works very, very well. So, you kind of want to, probably ask me and say, well, you're not supposed to use your knife that way anyway, so why should you care? Well, I'm paying a locking knife. This is not a slip joint. I will use a slip joint very differently than I would actually use a frame lock or a liner lock. I'd say that was enough. You see, it was just like 4 or 5 passes all it took. Oh, so this one needs a little bit more. And you know, so you treat it differently, because I would, you know, for a slip joint, I will keep my fingers on the handle. I will not put it on the blade to choke up or anything. If I do, I will make sure to keep it right under the kick, so I don't have to worry about the, you know, if the blade does fail on me, well, my finger is in a way right under the kick, which my finger will get pinched. This is kind of hard to do this with it behind the camera and a tripod. All right, so that was a couple more passes. Oh, I failed again. So I need a couple more. So some of these, like you see, like it just takes a couple of passes to try and get done. It's not, you know, some are faster than the others, some are slower than the others. But I like this method just because it's very unintrusive, and it's kind of funny because one of the makers that I kind of happened to, I actually had to send a knife in for a different kind of warranty work. He didn't even make a comment about the lock face, which means I feel like, you know, this is probably subtle enough of a adjustment that you really can't tell or notice it. Not to say this is, you know, something you use to outsmart warranty department. Nope, still a little bit more. And then it's also possible this geometry, it's end up being stuck with one of the ones that's, you know, just ever steep enough that I can't use this trick on. So it's just more of a trick, you know. It's hopefully it's a little trick that can use to help reduce the chance that you need to actually take a knife to a warranty department. All right, and it works for a lot of knives, especially for liner locks and frame locks. All right, so, you know, lock failure is a real issue that I've been seeing a lot in the industry, and it's really one of those things that I don't feel like people are comfortable talking, because, you know, I think, I want to say maybe 8 years ago, when people were spine whacking Striders, Chris Reeves, and Hinders and stuff, and there was a big fuss on the internet about how the marred up lock bars and so on and so forth, which I totally understand. You know, that becomes a warranty issue to fix. But at the same time, is that how come, you know, some knives survive spine whacks and some knives don't? You have to really ask yourself, you know, if they know what they're doing, then they know what they're doing, or they don't know what they're doing. Because it's like a car. You can't say that, you know, if a car brake, you know, fails if you slam on the brakes, and it's like, oh, you're not supposed to use your brakes like that. It was like, well, I mean, if it's a brake, you know, it's a stop, supposed to help stop the car, like a lock that stops a blade from collapsing on your finger, it should work under, you know, any circumstance. Because the only time frame lock should fail is actually if this lock bar relief buckles. And it buckles, and the lock bar travels just this way. It travels this way, and, you know, so it just kind of get crushed. And at this point, it gets crushed so far that it actually pops off. It actually doesn't pop off the rod. It will engage so far over this way, it actually makes a clearance to it because there's actually enough of a gap. It's kind of hard to describe, but you can probably look up pictures of lock bar buckling from people who just do really crazy, like, stress tests. All right, let's see if that did. Oh, still didn't work. All right, let's try again. But yeah, it's a kind of a process, and I may or may not speed this part up. I'm not sure, because it's kind of impromptu. But this is a ZT 620 CF. I end up kind of regrinding for giggles, because I've always actually, I really liked it, but it was a little thick behind the edge. So I was trying to thin it so it'd be a little thinner behind the edge. This is really funny because I thought that this knife would be less finicky than the other one, because the other one failed with no effort. This one's kind of surprising me. And with some of these, you know, it's like it may not work, you know. So it's kind of thing, but it's like, again, it's subtle enough that you don't have to really worry. All right. So this one, the lock bar tension is not as intense as the other ZT, the 562, because it's not a flipper. So this one, you don't need quite as much lock bar tension for that snappy action. You know, I mean, ZT got this D10 figured out pretty early on. I think since like the Kershaw tilt. So I think that's really what kind of propelled them to the top of the frame lock game, because we all like ball bearing flippers. But yeah, you know, whether you want to use this or not is entirely up to you. Because for me, I like my fingers. Because, you know, it's a $200 knife, but these 10 digits I'm born with, and I'll die with 10. You know, hopefully no less than 10. I can always get another ZT. This is actually the second one I've had. Fourth one I've had. I sold my other three. I forgot I had two beforehand. All right, see if this works. Nope. So this one, it may not work for. All right. Your lockup percentage would actually increase as well as this goes on using it, because you are actually removing materials. All right. So, and this isn't any like really good sandpaper either. It's the cheap Harbor Freight sandpaper that I just so happen to have. But yeah, you see with the other one, it worked out really fine. You know, it's just like that 4 or 5 passes all it took. This one ended up taking, you know, several more, which is, it happens sometimes. Sometimes you just need that little extra bit to kind of help chew it through. I say my guess with these is that the mating surfaces aren't lined up just right, because the previous one I had, the 620, perfect lockup, no slips, no lock rock or anything. All right, so yeah, it's a real unedited footage, so you're gonna see that I'm not BSing you here. But yeah, you know, it's one of those things you just gotta ask. If your knife fails, you know, you gotta wonder, you know, do you trust it? And just having some nicks on the finger taught me, yeah, I check every knife. I legit check every knife. And some makers I don't buy from anymore because of that. Yeah, I think that did it. See? All right, that did it. So again, you know, how is it that you saw this fail earlier? All right, now it's solid. Now I'm actually hitting it hard and it's not failing, which tells me it's good, it's solid, it's reliable. You know, let's check this one too. All right, locking surface is good. All right, so again, when you spine whack and stuff, you know, or spine tap, if you don't want to whack it, for this one, it's more just like the lock has to go this direction. That's the principle behind it, because this lock bar is under compression. All right, once you apply force this way, the force will transfer from, you know, from the blade to the tang and down to this lock bar. So for a frame lock to fail, this has to buckle. All right, this has to buckle for it to fail. And then so actually, and you know, it's one of those things with a lock argument, is that frame locks are as strong as liner locks. There's no way around it, because your locking surface is only that little corner. That's why this, you know, paper trick the sandpaper trick works, just because I'm only hitting that little corner of the locking surface that it's engaging with. So the whole idea that frame locks are stronger than liner locks is kind of bull, just because your lock relief is the same. Because this thickness here is the same as it is on most liner locks. And so if it's, you know, if your locking surface is the entire surface, my sandpaper trick wouldn't have worked, because all I was doing was hitting that corner, and I was just pulling through and rounding it off a little bit. All right, so you know, if you want to use this trick, you're welcome to use it. You know, don't go too low on the grit, because you might might take too much material off. Every knife will be slightly different, because the locks on a lot of these knives are cut by hand. And you know, sometimes the jig or something might be off just by a degree or two, just be enough to kind of mess with things. So that's something to keep an eye on. So yeah, you see, so I have 2 ZTs that are actually secure and they are safe for use. So, you know, it's good for hard use. For some knives, yeah, I've done this trick and it still holds up after, you know, months and months of use. So you're gonna have to, you know, check it once in a while. If a knife you have, well, after the sandpaper trick, after a little while, you notice, okay, use it for a little while. If they're secure, make sure to check it once in a while to make sure that it is still safe and secure. And remember, these 10 digits are worth more than $200, $300, hell, even $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000. You know, it's one of those things that, you know, my biggest fear is that it's not cutting the flesh, it's cutting like a tendon or something. That stuff doesn't grow back. Or cut a nerve. That stuff doesn't grow back. You can always get another knife. You know, if for those people who lost their fingers or have, you know, permanent nerve damage, if they can pay $2,000, $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 to get their finger back working, they totally would. So why would you treat your knives the same? That's really, you know, my thing. And I'm tired of all the internet arguments about the whole spine wax, not the spine tap and stuff too. It's like, no, a locking folder should lock no matter what. All right. Only time a locking folder, the lock should fail is from failure of the material, not because of the geometry. The geometry is part of, you know, making the knife. If the material should fall, that's a defect, you know, in the material. If it's, you know, the lock fails, is a defect in craftsmanship. Well, again, it's a warranty thing. So I suggest you give this a try. You know, if you don't want to just straight up put on a wooden block, use your strop, piece of leather on top, or wrap it in some tape so it's softer, and you'll be surprised at how easily locks pop on some of these knives. And use this trick to see if you can fix it. If this trick doesn't fix it, guess what? Your knife's gonna need a trip back to a manufacturer to adjust for a lock issue. And I kind of got into it with a maker a couple years back about the lock thing, but I don't buy his knives for this reason, because I don't trust his locks. You know, he was actually over our mutual friends for dinner one time, and it was at Blaze Show too, and he brought like 15 knives. Every single one of them, I can check it. And here's another thing to do, is to check the lock without spine wax if you don't want to. It's kind of the next step. So what I usually do when I get a fresh knife is I just hold it like this, and I apply pressure here, and I apply pressure there. So I'm trying to feel the lock. You know, you shouldn't feel the lock give rock or anything. Like, it should be solid. Remember, when you apply force here, this lock bar should go this way. All right. So this is, you know, I check that for his knives. Every single one, I can pop it with just with my grip, without trying. Just doing this number, just doing this, and it pops and fails. That's terrifying. And he still has plenty of customers, but at the same time is that his knives are, you know, fairly expensive. And I don't imagine those give the same kind of work that, you know, probably your average ZT is gonna see. So if you have a ZT, or, you know, maybe on a Spyderco that has this issue, and you kind of want to do a very non-intrusive way of fixing them, hopefully to get them up to speed so you can enjoy them again, give this trick a little try. All right. Remember, you just need a little small strip of sandpaper. All right. You know, this is like maybe, you know, 1/8 of an inch thick. And then an inch long. You know, it could be shorter. You know, I wouldn't try a little too wide, because you don't want to scratch your D10 ball by accident. So this is a quick little trick, and you saw that. It just took me a couple of minutes to fix a bad lockup. All right. So I hope you found this to be useful, and, you know, please be safe out there and do this at your own discretion. You may or may not worry. You're probably gonna void your warranty with this, but again, warranty, fingers. I pick my fingers over warranty any day of the week. All right, folks, y'all have a good one. I'll see you next time.